continue. You ask. Good.
All right.
Please, you can
You
continue.
know,
Yeah.
so as I was saying, we have two main channels for capacity building. At this point, we are still in conversation to discuss other routes, but they haven't been finalized. What we can share with you are these two main routes. So we have a publication route, and then we also have a training route, where we build, we encourage um, independent, users to build the skills to apply on Afrobarometer data. And the publication route, the short, I guess, way to describe it, you produce, you get published, and maybe get paid is the wrong term, but it's an incentive. It's not necessarily, it's just an incentive that we provide um, for people to use Afrobarometer publications when they are published within house. So we have, in terms of the publication route, we have four main routes: a blog post, a dispatch, a policy paper, and a working paper. And I would entreat you to actually go to our website now that you know how to access the online data analysis tool, to go to our website and then to have a look at the different requirements for a dispatch, a policy paper, or a working paper. And for the trainings, we have summer schools, which we organize in um, French and English. And then we have thematic workshops that is intermediate analysis, and it's based on a specific theme. And then we have what we call the Emerging Scholars Workshop. So for a blog post, there's no incentive. It's basically a short, accessible commentary on maybe one chart or one variable from Afrobarometer data. And a dispatch is kind of like a blog post, but multiple blog posts in one. So it's like a descriptive analysis, and the incentive for that is 500 US dollars. A policy paper is a deeper analysis with explicit policy recommendations and implications, and that usually involves a some kind of inferential analysis. So a dispatch, you don't necessarily have to do any inferential analysis. It's just descriptive analysis. And for a policy paper, that might involve either a regression of sorts or a factor analysis or something of that nature, where you're using one or you're using multiple variables to inform policy. And a working paper is basically it's like a full-length academic paper. It's like a peer review, what you do for a peer review publication, and the incentive for that one is 1,500 US dollars. So I'd like to, also encourage you to make use of these publication formats. I think it forms a progression. Ideally, now that you've been exposed to Afrobarometer data, you could come up with, if you are using the ODA, for instance, and I think even yesterday, somebody pointed out that they had noticed that democracy, the support for democracy, trust in national election commissions was decreasing over time. And, so something like that, just a single chart could.
With the author and perfecter of our faith. That's according to the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 2. Let us throw off everything.
All right.
Let us run with.
Okay. There was some interruption. So a blog post, there's no incentive, and then, you can progressively move up the ladder, and publish a dispatch, a policy paper, or a working paper. However, we also encourage you to, if you use Afrobarometer data outside Afrobarometer, we also encourage that, so that's actually the gold standard where we want to see more Afrobarometer work in, as peer review publications coming from African students and researchers. But that Afrobarometer doesn't give you an incentive if you are able to use our data for a peer review publication. But I would suggest that, and this is something that I do myself, if I'm trying to publish a peer review publication, I first submit it as an Afrobarometer working paper. And then once it's published as an Afrobarometer working paper, I would get the incentive for that. And then I would also be able to publish it as a peer review publication. And obviously it depends on the journal that you're applying that you are submitting to some journals, you have to, declare that you've submitted a version of the paper that you are submitting as a working paper somewhere. But that is allowed within academia. And in terms of our, the channel 2, the trainings and workshops, we have an introductory, intermediate, and advanced trainings or advanced workshops. So the introductory is a summer school, and the aim of that is to prepare a participant to write an Afrobarometer dispatch. Usually we do it for our national partners. As you saw from session 1, in Ghana, we have a national partner. In Malawi, we have a national partner. In South Africa, we have a national partner. So usually it's a national partner. So 60% of those involved in the summer school come from the national partner because we are training the national partner staff on how to develop dispatches using Afrobarometer data. However, about 40% of that cohort is always external. So if you are interested in, getting specific training for towards an Afrobarometer dispatch, you can apply for the summer school program. And, in order to be aware of all of these initiatives, I'd also advise you to follow us on our, LinkedIn and social media channels so that once there's a call, you have early access and early information. Aside from the summer school, which is introductory, we also have a thematic workshop, and it trains participants to be able to write an Afrobarometer policy paper, and it usually focuses on a specific theme. The last thematic workshop, Anglophone thematic workshop, the theme for it was political participation. So everybody who attended that thematic workshop ended up submitting a draft manuscript on political participation using Afrobarometer data. This year, we are not having an Anglophone thematic workshop. We are prioritizing Francophone training. So we are doing a Francophone thematic workshop. So if you happen to be French speaking, you could perhaps apply for the Francophone thematic workshop. The major difference being that the facilitators for the various, languages, for the Francophone thematic workshop, we have French facilitators, and for the Anglophone thematic workshop, we have English facilitators. We haven't started doing Lusophone trainings. However, that's, it's something that we are thinking about in the future, where we can also have our African siblings from Cabo Verde and, Angola and Mozambique also benefit from Afrobarometer trainings. And I think what is relevant for us today, and the colleague, Dr. Philip, who will present later on, was part of our Afrobarometer Emerging Scholars Workshop, and that is for researchers who are already using Afrobarometer data. So these are independent researchers who are using Afrobarometer data for their research. So in terms of the workshop, it's like a conference, we select, it's a competitive process, we select some, people apply, we go through a competitive selection process, and then we invite them over, they present their work, they get some feedback, and then they can either publish as a working paper or publish as a peer review publication. We are also thinking about, this isn't listed here, but we're also thinking about doing a brown bag session. That's also for advanced, for researchers who are already using Afrobarometer data, to come and, present to Afrobarometer staff and, network that are interested in analysis to present their work so that they get some feedback, and then submit as a working paper or a peer review publication. So the channels feed into each other. The summer school prepares you for a dispatch, and the incentive for a dispatch is $500. The thematic workshop prepares you for a policy paper with an incentive of $750, and the Emerging Scholars Workshop basically prepares your work for a working paper or as a peer review publication. So now this section, I would invite Dr. Philip. And before I actually invite him, I wanted us to have a look at the work that he has done, and before he comes to talk to us. So I'll follow the link and share the abstract of his work with us. But as you can see, it was published in the China Economic Review, and it was about the paradox of assistance, Chinese aid in Africa and economic expectations. Let me just show you the the abstract of that, so that you have an idea about how he used Afrobarometer data. And as with good academic work, he didn't only use Afrobarometer data. You can see he triangulated Afrobarometer data with different data sets, and I think that's something that you should all aspire to. So as you can see, I'll just give you a moment so that you can read the abstract before I invite Dr. Philip to give us, for a brief conversation. Yes, so now, let me just go back to the PowerPoint presentation and invite, I'll stop sharing, and then I'll invite Dr. Philip to tell you folks some more about, his engagement with Afrobarometer. So Dr. Philip, please, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Kamal. I believe I'm being clearly heard. Please, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you so much. So my greetings to us all on this platform, and thank you, Dr. Kamal, for the opportunity to also share my experience with Afrobarometer. It will be more like a very informal sharing. So I'm Philip Atitiante, as was earlier on introduced, and I'm a Ghanaian. I did my studies in China, my master's and PhD in China. I'm still in China. And for the past years, Afrobarometer has been one of the main data sets I've been using for my research. My research is more of development economics, a little bit about political economy, and some political science. So my journey with Afrobarometer, I think, started mainly when I started my PhD, because I wanted to work on Africa. I wanted to do my research on Africa, and I think it was my former supervisor who sent, I think through him, I got a conference presentation. There was a conference in the school, and one of the presenters was using Afrobarometer data to look at how aid projects influence employment. So when I went through the slides, I realized, okay, Afrobarometer data is something I would want to work with. And I think ever since then, I've really enjoyed working with the data set. And I personally also am a very big fan of the Afrobarometer institution. And I think as I share more, you get to know why. So basically, that's how my journey with Afrobarometer started. So far, I have participated in their Emerging Scholars Workshop. And I've also had opportunity to participate in their thematic workshop. I think somewhere around 2022 or so, I participated in their thematic workshop they did, I think on political participation or something of that sort. And then fast forward, I had opportunity to also participate in the Emerging Scholars Workshop. I'll quickly share my screens just maybe to help blend in so that my session is not necessarily too oral. So if you check the screen, I hope you're able to see my screen. These are some of the scenes from the Emerging Scholars Research Workshop. And I think some few things I want to point out here is beyond the training and engagement you get to do during such workshop, it also gives you a very great opportunity to network with other researchers and other people who come together. So at this particular Emerging Scholars Research Workshop, we're able to meet some of the board members of Afrobarometer, the chairman, Kamal himself, together with his colleagues, and then fellow researchers from all over Africa. I think this event was hosted in Ghana, and I know the previous event was hosted in South Africa. And so for me, one of the standout events was the opportunity I had to basically engage with researchers and top minds in the field of research. Some of the people we read their papers, you realize that you go for Afrobarometer events, and this same person you read his or her paper to learn from, you realize that the person will be sitting by you, and then you get to engage with them and then get to share some ideas and then get to network such that though the event would end, beyond that, you have the opportunity to be able to still stay in touch with some of the people or some of the professionals you end up basically meeting during the training. For us as scholars, one thing that I would point out is the fact that because Afrobarometer data comes with geocodes. If I say geocodes, I mean like latitude, longitude, right? I think that is one thing that makes it stand out so much, and that is one thing that has contributed to the wide use of Afrobarometer data set. If you do a little check online, you realize that researchers from all over the world are engaging with Afrobarometer data set. The top journals, at least in my field of economics, the top journals that we are all targeting, hoping to publish, it is very common to see people using Afrobarometer data set to come up with works and then publish over there in those top journals. And I think one thing that we perhaps could point out is because it comes along with geocodes, it allows you to merge the data set with other maybe GIS data sets or other data sets that have these geocodes. So I'll give just a quick peek into some of the works I've published. And you realize that so far, most of the works I've published, I had to merge the data set with other data sets. So just a minute and then I would quickly. All right. So I guess you're able to see my screen now. Can I get some feedback?
Yes, you
All
can
right.
see it.
Thank you. So this was one of the earliest papers I had published using Afrobarometer dataset. And for this particular paper, I merged a dataset on 8 projects. Okay, 8 projects that have been funded by China and the World Bank. For those of you may be aware, there's a project or a dataset called 8 Data. All right, they are the ones who provide that geocoded data set on 8 projects funded by China and then other agencies. So this was one of the initial works I was able to publish using Afrobarometer data set. And this also is another paper I was still able to publish using the same data set of Afrobarometer and then the AID project. And this one as well is what Dr. Kamal had previewed. This one, I think, is the most recent that was published last year in China Economic Review. All right, and then I think there is one more that, yeah, I think this one too. So you realize that just by merging the data set on the aid projects in Africa and then the Afrobarometer data set, I've been able to just get about 4 publications from just these 2 data sets. And definitely there are countless ideas to come up with. There are countless opportunities for you to merge this data set with other data sets to come up with various publications. I have some colleagues I work with, and they have also been able to merge Afrobarometer data set with various kind of data sets to publish works in urban economics, about climate, and various other themes. So I think as researchers or as students over here, if you are in the space of economics, political science, maybe some of the health disciplines, and other related disciplines, I think there is so much opportunity to use the Afrobarometer dataset, especially if you are someone who wants to focus on research in the African space. Because I think, to the best of my knowledge, Afrobarometer is one of the very official and a very established, reliable provider of data set, especially survey data set on public attitudes, perceptions, and various other agencies. And I know maybe it was touched on in the previous sessions, but one cool feature of Afrobarometer dataset is for every round, right? For every round, they have specialized topics on which they capture, what do you call it? They use some of their questions to capture people's perceptions. So, for example, during the COVID season and shortly after the COVID season, if you check the Afrobarometer survey rounds, you realize that there were questions on COVID. So it means it gives room for people who perhaps are into the health space or are into population dynamic space who want to research about such things. It means though majority of the questions in Afrobarometer datasets may not necessarily be suitable to your area of research, but focusing on those specialized topics gives you room to merge the Afrobarometer dataset together with another dataset that you may have, and then you go to assess the metrics like COVID. I remember some years back, I think when I participated in the thematic online research workshop, I think it was shortly after the Ghana election. And if you guys remember, during that Ghana election, there was a lot of violence, there was a lot of vigilantism. And I clearly remember that in the Afrobarometer survey data for that particular season, they specifically put questions on some of the vigilantism activity that took place in Ghana. And interestingly, those questions were what I used to come up with my paper for that particular thematic workshop. Right. So I think it's a space that you can keep looking at every round. You keep, what do you call it, trying to go through the questions, trying to figure out the specialized topics, especially that Afrobarometer have been capturing. For example, I was not too long ago, I was going through the round 10 questionnaires, right? And I realized that in that particular round 10, under the specialized topic zone, they put in some new questions, which already I have started thinking on to come up with a new paper, right? So I'm just waiting because the round 10, the compiled data set in English, I think is yet to be released. I was initially thinking of maybe reaching out to Dr. Kamal, but I think I got caught up in other things. So I'm just waiting for access to the merged data set because now for the round 10, I think it's only available at the country level on the website. And I think some of them are in French, but I know normally when they release the merged data set, everything will be in English. And basically, I'm just waiting to access that data set to be able to come up with the new project I want to work on. And so it has, I think the data set is very diverse and can meet a lot of us, our needs, who are here as students or as researchers who perhaps are considering using the Afrobarometer data set for, what do you call it, for our research. And like Dr. Kamal said, the incentives that he basically shared are actually very true. These are not gimmicks. When I participated in the thematic online workshop, though it was an online workshop, I was still paid, right? I was still paid in dollars. When we went for the emerging scholars research, the emerging scholars workshop, actually it was very surprising, and that's what even made me love Afrobarometer the more. I live in China, but they paid my tickets to the venue and then back. The conference or the workshop took place in Ghana. And for, I think, all the participants, they funded everyone's return ticket. So you're going to Ghana and you're returned to your place of stay. And then over there too, they gave us per diem for our time over there. And for me, it just blew my mind, right? Because we are going there to learn, to network, to engage, to share ideas. And they even made it much more easier. They handled the ticketing, everything. We didn't have to necessarily struggle to engage in all these things. So for me, it's one of the reasons why I've come to appreciate their efforts so much. And one key thing that made me eventually not miss out on all these offers is because I had subscribed to their newsletter or I had joined their email list. So sometimes I didn't necessarily have to go to, what do you call it, the maybe LinkedIn or Twitter to get some updates on their posts. Sometimes, because I was part of their email list, anytime they released maybe an announcement or a program upcoming, I'll receive it in my inbox, and then I'll be able to eventually apply. All right. So I think if you would want to still get to know more, or perhaps hoping to get opportunity to participate in this thematic workshop or the Emerging Scholars Workshop, I think it would be good, like Dr. Kamal said, to subscribe to their email list or their newsletter so that you don't necessarily miss out on the information they may be releasing out of us. And I think, like he said, the working paper is a great avenue for you to build your research and also at least get to make some funds. And who knows, maybe the funds you get, you could use that to fund your publication, since I know some journals require article processing charges, right? And perhaps you are targeting a very top journal who requires article processing charge. If you're able to publish your paper with Afrobarometer as a working paper and then they give you the funds, then you can use the funds to now pay for the article publishing charge that your journal may require. So I think these are some of the things I personally wanted to touch on in terms of my experience with Afrobarometer data. And definitely, I look forward to engaging more with it. I look forward to publishing more working papers with Afrobarometer, and then still look forward to. I call myself an unofficial ambassador of Afrobarometer, right? So because I just like the institute so much. So I think here will be a good place to end. If there are any questions, definitely it will be a pleasure to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Philip. So let me also just share my one last slide I have for you, and then we can open the floor up for Q&A. Sure. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much again, once again, to Dr. Philip. So I'd also just like to, emphasize that, the next step is already on the map. Pick your route, whether you're going to start with, a blog post, and then, do a dispatch and then a policy paper, and then a working paper. That's a route that you have to pick. And then you can also match your training to, your ambition. So if you are interested in doing a policy paper and there's a call, you can, apply to the, thematic workshop. Or if you're interested in doing a dispatch and there's a call, then you apply to the, summer school. And, we've already spoken about how the engagement is rewarded. And you also, a key takeaway, as Dr. Philip also emphasized, is, you're not alone. If you are thinking about using Afrobarometer, you can contact, I think I'll share, a PowerPoint on the WhatsApp group so that we also have what we call our office hours so that you can contact, myself or, some of my colleagues, Suhaila, Dominique, who we've met, and then you have a conversation with us, and then we can guide you on what to do. And also, just another key point that I didn't mention earlier on was that, so the working paper series, we have an academic editor for it. And, so basically whether your paper is accepted or is not accepted depends on, the editor decides, like many peer review publications, he will decide whether your work whether he wants to publish a work in the working paper series that he's working on or not. And also, similarly, for the policy paper series, we have an editor, and for the dispatch series also we have an editor. I think what is a bit tricky with the dispatch and the policy papers is that you have to kind of get approval from the editors. So if you're working on a topic and you feel like you want to get incentivized for the topic, you have to get clearance from the editors of the dispatch and the policy papers before they have to give you the go ahead. So then they'll say that, oh, no, nobody's working on perhaps migration in Ghana using the round 10 data set, and then they'll give you the go ahead. And once you can come up with a good manuscript, then they'll process that and incentivize you. So that's what is a bit complex with the dispatch and policy papers, but the working paper, because it's an academic peer reviewer, that doesn't really matter. And most often, most people's you can be doing a paper on migration and somebody else is doing a paper on migration, but the methods that you use at such an advanced level will not necessarily be the same. So the working paper, that hang up is not there. So that's it from Afrobarometer side. So for now, thank you, and we welcome any questions that you have. So I'll stop sharing and over to you. God bless, and the other colleagues.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Kamal. Yeah, it's been a wonderful time and a wonderful inspiration from Dr. Atlanti. Please, colleagues, any question for our panel members? Yeah, you can ask Dr. Atlanti some question. He is an alumni, and should I say an alumni because he's still planning on using the data set to still make some few thousands of dollars. So any question for them? The floor is open. Yes, any question? Any question? Okay. Dr. Kamal, let me ask this maybe. If I want to partner with maybe two of my colleagues, for example, on a paper, usually you have 2, 3, or 4 authors. So if I partner with 2 or 3 of my colleagues and we came up with a policy paper, are all the 3 of us going to be credited with the incentive, or is going to be the leading author that will be credited with the incentive and probably the policy paper?
Thank you so much. And that's a very relevant question. So it's a paper that is incentivized. So if you are 3 authors, then there's the 750 for a policy paper will be divided equally among all 3 authors. So each author will be credited. I hope that answers your question. So if you are 10 authors, all 10 of you will also be credited on the full amount.
Okay. That means that apart from the incentive, all the 10 authors, 5 authors, 2 authors hold legitimate rights to the paper or the policy.
Yes.
Okay. Guys, any more question? Any more question? Okay. Dr. Kamal, I think, come on, questions are not coming, so we will end here. But before we go, I think this tutorial section is as I read from the last slide, it has now bound Afrobarometer to NUGS-China. And I believe that going forward, whatever program that students in China can benefit from Afrobarometer, we will not be left in the dark. We will be communicated so that those of us who really want to continue on working with Afrobarometer can still engage with the institution.
Yes, please. That's right. I'd also, I'll share later on, I'll share an evaluation form so that, you put your details down, so everybody who's attended, so I'll share it with you on the WhatsApp group so that anybody who's attended the session can also, respond to the evaluation form, even if they've just attended one out of, 3 sessions or, 2 out of 3 sessions, they can, complete the evaluation form and leave us their details and, we'll we subscribe them to our mailing list. We are creating a list where we also have the participants have participated in our outreach on the list so that we share information with them. And the other thing also I wanted to mention, maybe as a way of closing, is when we're starting this, yes, it's NUGS-China. However, I would like you to also think broadly, because this is our first time that we've done an outreach with a student-led organization. So it's not just the focus is not just on Ghanaian students, but African students more broadly. So this is in a way kind of our pilot into doing outreach with student-run organizations. So we'll be hoping that at least the participants in NUGS-China will maybe also through your efforts be able to involve us in wider African student-based unions, especially in China. I think on the rest of the continent and in the West, we have access to those student unions. However, in China, this is our first. We haven't done much outreach in China. It's the East and China is becoming more and more prominent in Africa and on the globe. So we are definitely keen on doing more outreach in the East. So if we can get some more inroads into contacting wider groups of African students within China, we will also be very grateful for that. So yes, we started with NUGS-China, but hopefully this is the beginning of and provides a template and a pilot for other outreach with student-led organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that that's a wonderful thing to do. So we also try as much as possible within our means here to contact our colleagues from other countries. I know some of us, we have friends from other countries who belong to other student bodies. So we will link up with them and then see how we can organize something like that, probably maybe led by NUGS-China. Then we can organize probably an example section like this so that everybody can benefit, take advantage of that. Thank you very much, Dr. Kamal. And okay, as closing statement, I think I will call on the president of NUGS-China to give us the closing remarks. Press do.
Hello. Yeah, please, I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right. All right. I'm currently in a train, so I'm afraid
Oh, okay.
my network might not be clear. So thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. God bless for the good work done. And so on behalf of NUGS-China, we want to say a very big thank you to the whole team from Afrobarometer, Dr. Kamal, and then the whole team. We are very grateful. Since last week, Thursday, Friday, and then yesterday and today. Thank you for the knowledge that you have impacted in us. We as a student body are always forever grateful for your availability and even spending time out of your schedule to fix this collaboration with us. So we are very grateful, and we hope that it is not going to end here. As Dr. God bless said, we hope that you are going to be the starting point for Afrobarometer to continuously impact other students bodies in China. So probably now that we are done with NUGS-China and Afrobarometer, we'll do a collabo with some other African countries as well, and then we expand the family. And so we want to say a very big thank you. And also on behalf of the whole union, I want to say a very, very, very big thank you to Dr. Philip. Yes, for those of us who don't know, this collaboration is possible or was able to come to pass through the thinking of Dr. He came up with the idea, and as he shared with us his experience today, he came up with the idea that looking at how immensely he has benefited from Afrobarometer, he thinks that it is a good resource that other Ghanaians studying in China can tap into. And so he reached out to me, and this is where we are. So Dr. Philip, in fact, God richly, richly, richly bless you for introducing us to Afrobarometer. We have really learned a lot. And we thank you for your generosity and even your participation. In fact, you've been very helpful to our administration this year, not only with Afrobarometer, but even helping us with the other training in the scale up as well. And so, Doc, may God continue to bless you. And to all our participants, we want to thank you for your participation in the training this 4 days. We shared the Afrobarometer Google Workspace, Google Worksheet form. So we want to encourage all of us that let's fill and then get in touch with Afrobarometer so that we can receive all the updates, the new data sets that they release. Let's not lose track of whatever they have for us. And we want to thank all of you for making time out of these 4 days to join us bring this program to a successful closure. And to the academic committee of NUGS-China, we are forever, forever grateful. Dr. God bless, Dr. Bruce, Dr. Irene, the whole team, Dr. Bonzo, Honorable Getfried. We are forever grateful to this fantastic committee for all that you have done for the union. So we want to say a very big thank you to all of us, and God richly, richly bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Okay, so I don't know if before we say the prayer, maybe you want to hear the voice of, maybe I should have done that later. I think she's already gone. Okay, no problem. So you send our greetings to her for us, Dr. Kamal. Oh, I think she's around. Sue, maybe a hi to the people.
Thanks. God bless. Hello, everyone.
Yeah. So we are going to miss you, but I'm very sure that we will meet very, very soon again. So
Yes,
yeah, we'll meet.
this is the end of this session, but we look forward to staying connected with you. And maybe when you will be embarking on some publications, you can always contact us through office hours. We can have a short meeting just to try and help accelerate the process. It was a
Perfect.
pleasure to have you all. Thank you.
Thank you too. Thank you too. Okay, so Organa, can you no, this time there. Madam Belinda, please kindly give us the closing prayer and let's call it an evening. Madam Belinda, are you talking? I can see you've unmuted yourself, but I can't hear you. Can somebody hear Belinda? Oh, Belinda, we can't hear you. I think you are talking, you are praying, but we can't hear. Unfortunately, we can't hear you. Can you try once again? Okay. Okay. Sharon, can you do us the favor? Just close us. Sharon.
Hello,
Yeah.
please, we are praying. My dear Master Savior, we thank you once again. We bless and exalt your holy name. We thank you for a wonderful gathering. We thank you for being in our midst. We thank you for starting with us. Father, we are ending and we are leaving. Pray that you continue to be with us. We pray whatever that we have learned, oh God, may we put it into practice. And we pray, oh God, that continue to bless the organizers and everybody who partook in this activity. Father, may you go with us and may you strengthen us. Help us in all our way and give us success. We bless your name and glorify your holy name. In Jesus' name, I we pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much for availing yourself. Hoping to see you in the next session. It's God bless here. I've been your host for this particular tutorial. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Please, I couldn't join the group because the QR code has expired already.
Oh, okay. Abraham.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get in touch on one of the platforms. Then you share it with you. Okay. I think you are on one of the platforms. Maybe I think the Hall, NUGS-China Hall page. Yeah, we will share it there. Then you can join. Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Welcome. Oh, Belinda, sorry, maybe your connection was messing up. Organa,
Boss,
I greet you.
I greet you too.
Yeah, right now we are done with this one. The main work
On
is
to the
ahead.
next. Yeah.
And it's next week. Oh, it's next week.
God is on our side. We'll pull through.
Yeah, it will surely come to pass. It means today is Friday. From Monday to Friday is the real work. Hmm. I'm thinking of when to come to Xi'an.
Maybe Thursday or Friday.
Friday we want to have the opening, so probably I should be there on Thursday, and then we can relax a bit so that Friday it wouldn't be like pressure.
Yeah, true.
Let's see. Surely pass through. Hey, so far, hey, there are people here still. On my phone call. Cancel Moko. They say Kakumo on the or county or organize a president so tinka nipa tu na aka me kwa menka you can't sack anybody from here. Can't sack anybody.
Oh, we just have to end the call.
Yeah. Okay. Let me close my. Hey,